I'm Andre Clements. I'm speaking to you from Johannesburg, Southern Africa, and for tonight from the Commonwealth of Dominica, an island nation in the Eastern Caribbean. The opening ceremony will be led by Miranda and Gerard Langley, two Kalinago elders. The indigenous people of the Caribbean region, before the European invasion 500 years ago, numbered about 6 million. As a result of colonial genocide, today the Kalinago of Dominica number just 2,000 and are the last indigenous people in the region with territory. Miranda Langley is popularly known as the Kalinago Cultural Queen. She's a singer, a designer, a cultural activist, and the president of the Karina Cultural Group of Dominica. Gerard Langley is a cultural activist, a spiritual healer, a shaman, and the manager of the Karina Cultural Group. Both Miranda and Gerard have received many regional and international awards for cultural preservation of the Kalinago people. Following their opening ceremony, we will hear from Jessica Canham of the Kapi Cottage Retreats in Dominica, who has kindly agreed to read the Extinction Rebellion World Shared Purpose and Dignity invitation that we read at each one of these meetings. She will also say a few things around that and their context. Miranda, Gerard, and Jessica, over to you.
Thank you, Gerard and Miranda. I've been asked to read the Extinction Rebellion World Purpose and Dignity Invitation. We invite everyone to join in agreement to this shared purpose. Facing the destruction of our planet's natural life support systems and runaway climate change by responding to the best of our abilities in alignment with the XR principles and values. To love this world and beings in it, and resolve to work together to save our families, our communities, all people, all animals, and the world from as much suffering and destruction as possible. We welcome everyone in XR spaces and refuse to let our differences divide us. We will force our governments and other powers to act by mobilizing vast numbers of ordinary people from all walks of life to join us in the streets and in supporting mass, non-violent civil resistance. We work to change the harmful aspects of the things we do and the ways we do them towards taking better care of ourselves, those around us, and the world. The Shared Dignity Agreement. We commit to cultures of respect and shared dignity as we work together in person, in groups, in real life and online. We will communicate with mutual appreciation, kindness, and care. We will speak from our own experience without making assumptions about what is in the minds and the hearts of others. When we disagree, we will assume goodwill on the part of others, even though we sometimes lack skillfulness or understanding. And when we point out harmful behaviors, we will refrain from canceling people by shaming, attacking, gossiping, or dismissing them with negative labels. We will only commit to tasks that we can do, and will return those we have not been able to do. We are a community united in our work, and everyone is valued. We are what we have to work with. We are family. Now, I want to thank Extinction Rebellion for inviting us to participate. I am Dominican. The Kalinago name for our island is Waitikubali. Tall is her body. Here in the Eastern Caribbean, we are on the front lines of the climate emergency. Our island of just 70,000 inhabitants was devastated in 2017 by one of the largest Category 5 hurricanes to ever form in the tropical Atlantic. Hurricane Maria grew from a tropical storm to a ferocious Category 5 in just 24 hours. When I opened my window that morning after the storm, it looked like a nuclear bomb had exploded. Every leaf on every tree was gone. Roofs were gone, bridges washed out, roads, crops destroyed. And there were 65 Dominicans who lost their lives that day. Hurricane Maria clearly demonstrated to us that collapse is arriving on our shores in violent waves, hitting the most vulnerable places first. Over the past 3 years, Dominicans have worked hard together to rebuild and to recover. And with international support, we did it. In order to survive the next waves of climate catastrophe, we need solidarity between the global north and the global south. There will be calm periods between this chaos. And in Dominica, we know that now is the time to learn to adapt to this climate crisis. Now is the time to take action and to push back against a terminal tomorrow. Here at Cappy Cottage Retreats, we host transformative group learning experiences in the mountains on the edge of the last intact oceanic rainforest in our region. Like ours, people around the world face the same uncertainty and are learning transformation. We support XR's shared purpose. We work to change the harmful aspects of the things that we do and the ways we do them towards taking better care of ourselves, those around us, including the more than human creatures and all the natural world. Thank you, and one love.
Really, really moved by the amount of love and kindness that is permeating already this event. And in the statements that have been made, especially, I mean, all the stuff about inclusivity and stuff. It doesn't sound like a cliche. Especially, what really touched me is the principle of taking a generous interpretation of people with whom we may be in conflict or with whom we may be in disagreement. And it occurred to me that this might play out even in the kind of like nonviolent direct action that you might be doing. One phrase that stuck out at me that seemed a little bit, it didn't quite feel in the same frequency, was about forcing the government to change its policies. Like this idea of forcing, how does that square with maybe an understanding that even people in positions of power, on some level, maybe their heart isn't in this either, isn't in the maintenance of the world-destroying machine? And might there be other strategies and other paradigms and other ways of looking at action that are not about forcing, but might also be, or not only about forcing, but might also be about invitation? And that leads me to think about how I became an environmentalist. I wasn't forced to become an environmentalist, and I don't think any of you were either. And in fact, it wasn't also because I was afraid that we were all going to die, or I was afraid of the economic losses of that would be caused by climate change. Really what it was, the first experience I remember was as a child, hand in hand with my father, looking at a big flock of birds in the sky. And I said, Dad, that's a big flock of birds. And he said, well, let me tell you about the passenger pigeon, whose flocks would darken the sky. From horizon to horizon, the flocks were so big, day after day, they would pass. And now they're all gone. And it took me a while to really understand what extinct meant. And I cried in my bed that night and many nights thereafter, especially as I realized that this was not just an historical event, but that extinction was ongoing. And I think, like, why does that hurt? It's not my self-interested, rational, calculating mind that says, woo, if this continues, some bad thing is going to happen to me. It hurts because in some deep sense, these beings that are going extinct, that are being harmed, are me. And that anytime a place that I love is bulldozed, or a pond that was full of life is dead, or when I read about the fish being exterminated in the oceans and whales at maybe 5% their former levels, and soil blowing away in the wind. And I see the photographs of the Albertan tar sands, the devastated landscapes, and the strip mines I mean, even if we're talking about, solar panels and stuff, I mean, the ecological devastation that's happening in the name of green energy is monumental also. And I see all these things and it hurts because we are in a time of civilization where we are recovering the indigenous understanding of our non-separation from the rest of the world. And it goes beyond dependency on the rest of nature. It's not just interconnection and interdependency, it's interbeing, as Thich Nhat Hanh might put it, interexistence. It is happening to us. And therefore, one name for the expansion of self to include another is love. And that really what this movement is falling in love with Earth. And when someone you love is experiencing pain and harm, then you cannot live life oblivious to that. For your life to make sense, it has to take into account the suffering of that which you love. And this is what, in my mind, underlies the slogan of this particular gathering, the part about time to act. It's this urgency that comes not even so much from hurry, but the urgency that comes from a desperation to align our life force with that which we love. So I want to just name that, because I think that whether it's in terms of like practical policies, environmental policies, or in terms of our communication and our rhetoric, it's important to be grounded in the knowledge that Earth is alive. On the policy level, that means that it's not just about cutting carbon. We could cut carbon dioxide to zero overnight, but if we continue to degrade and destroy the living organs of a living tissues and organs and cells of Gaia, the forests, the soil, the whales, the elephants, the sea turtles, even the beings that seem not to contribute to carbon in any obvious way, the insects. And of course, you could make a case that they do, but whether or not they do, if we continue to destroy these organs, the rainforests that pump moisture across continents, the soil that soaks in the rain and prevents droughts and floods, the coral reefs, the seagrass meadows, the mangroves that buffer hurricanes, and that keep the global physiology running. If we continue to destroy these organs, then Earth will die of organ failure. regardless of carbon. And so that's leads to the priorities of protecting whatever organs are still healthy and restoring and regenerating the ones that are damaged. That we're stepping into a new and ancient story about what a human being is and why we are here. And when we recognize that, in fact, we are here, not as the old story says, to dominate and conquer and maximize our reproductive self-interest or our financial self-interest. No, that we are actually here to serve life and beauty on earth. And that includes everyone. I loved hearing that in the introduction. Everyone is coming along for this ride. And the understanding that the social climate, the psychic climate, the economic climate, the climate of human relationship is inextricably linked to the health of the global climate. That we cannot have a world of incendiary rhetoric and boiling resentment and seething hatred and not have a climate that is boiling and seething, or at least deranged, because that's what happens when the organs are destroyed. Then homeostasis cannot be maintained. So to speak to this new and ancient understanding of what a human being is and what we are for, and to see even people who we might judge in positions of power, in government, in corporations, the ones that we would like to cast into the category of evil, to see them maybe as on some level, they are here for the same reason we are. And how do we appeal to that? How do we awaken that love? How do we invite others into the perception of a living planet in which every place, every being is important and sacred? We know this to be true. And yeah, and I'll just end by saying, with a thank you for standing in that knowledge together, because alone it seems kind of crazy to go against what the culture tells us what a human being is for and what the earth is. And here we are in these gatherings, so important to remind each other that what we are seeing and what we are feeling is the truth. So thank you so much for the event.
The world is a big place. The world is also in big trouble. And that is what Extinction Rebellion is about. It's about facing that trouble and doing what we can to make it better some. XR World events are organized at this stage to happen roughly every 2 months, not business as usual, but the business of love and rage and courage and compassion and realism and devotion. As much as we can muster, resisting the destruction, reducing harm, and dismantling injustice with respect and passion for life.
Thank you to Extinction Rebellion. I'm speaking to you from in India today, where literally people are dying for lack of oxygen. 4,000 a day, most of them, the body is collapsing. And where did these pandemics come from? Over the last 30 years of the rule of greed, globalization it's called, I just call it the rule of greed. It's also called free trade. We stopped them in Seattle in 1999. It can be stopped again, this rule of greed. It doesn't know when to stop. It's like a cancer on the planet. It has to invade every ecosystem to create commodities, to dump the pollution. And GMO soya is being grown in the Amazon to then be dumped on us to destroy our wonderful mustard and our beautiful linseed and our beautiful pulses and our bars. Every invasion into a forest is a recipe to create diseases and epidemics. Corona now, SARS a few years ago, the swine flu before that, Ebola, HIV, Zika, the list goes on. This is an ecological pandemic. And that is how we need to address it. It is not a narrow health problem. It is a result of destabilizing the planet. And the same processes that are destroying the rights of the indigenous people, destroying the lungs and the livers of the planet, the rich biodiversity of the Amazon. I remember in the 80s when the forest movement is what we had built. I had begun my life with the Chipko movement, the Hug the Tree movement. And I began when I found a stream, just like Charles, hearing about the birds disappear. I actually watched a stream disappear. I saw a forest disappear. And I felt part of me was amputated because I'd grown up in these forests. And that's when I took a commitment to become part of this amazing movement called Chipko in the early 70s. The Chipko movement was a movement of deep resistance from a deep love. The act of resistance was hugging trees. And in a way, that is what we are being called on to do, hug the earth. That is our rebellion against the assault on the earth, the war against the earth. The same invasion into forests that is destroying biodiversity, creating and pandemics is also contributing to climate change. My studies show that about 50% of the greenhouse gas emissions come from a greed-based agriculture system based on war chemicals that came from Hitler's Germany. About 15% comes from the actual production, including use of nitrogen fertilizers, the same process that made bombs. About 18 to 20% comes from deforestation. They call it land use change. And most people didn't realize land use change meant chop the forests. Another 15 to 20% comes from taking good food and turning it into junk that then gives us chronic diseases. The plastic waste, the aluminum waste. If you do an archaeology of waste dumps, you will find that most of it is food packaging or wasted food. That's about 4%. And it's robbing us of our health. So all of the ecological problems, including the threat to human life today, is rooted in separation and superiority, the disease of anthropocentrism, the idea that humans are superior to other species. And worse, it took the crafting by the Bacons and the Descartes to declare that nature is dead. That violation of colonialism is what our basic rebellion has to be against, because the earth is very much alive. And celebrating her aliveness is the regeneration revolution. Because if something can't generate, how can you regenerate? The earth has been reduced to a deposit of raw materials to be mined. And if one runs out, shift your base. Right now, they think everyone is thinking, wow, electric cars will be a miracle. But lithium mining led to the Bolivian coup, and the Bolivians are the ones who gave us the gift of the Universal Declaration on the Rights of Mother Earth after the collapse of the Copenhagen Agreement. All the threats we face to our future and the future of other species, climate change, extinction, hunger, malnutrition, are rooted in a system that should never have existed. And having A, lived so long, and two, lived across so many cultures, I realized actually fossil fuel-free cultures are richer cultures. Chemical-free farming is better farming, produces more food, doesn't make you sick. Our work in Navdanya, the movement I started when I found the chemical companies wanting to own and patent life. We have seen that the more biodiversity you conserve, the more species you conserve, the more food you get. Food is a byproduct of love for the earth, care for the earth. Agriculture means care for the earth. And I've spent the last 4 decades trying to understand where agriculture went wrong, with the Bhopal disaster and the Punjab uprisings, but also how to make agriculture resilience, agricultural resistance. 75% water destruction, 75% soil destruction, 50% climate change, and 93% species destruction, 75% health problems, all related to a bad food system. We can begin with food. We can begin by planting and growing gardens everywhere. For me, growing a garden is the highest form of resistance against a toxic anti-life system. And I would like to end with sharing. I'm a believer that to face big threats, you have to begin small and multiply it. We got freedom in India from the spinning wheel. For me, seed saving is the spinning wheel of today. And I know through my lifetime, seed by seed, community by community, farm by farm, organizing community, assembly by assembly, we can regenerate the world. The earth is waiting and inviting us to join her with her power. And that's the other arrogance, including the arrogance of a lot of environmental activists who think they carry the earth on their shoulders. No, we are one among many species. And we have to weave the web of life in nonviolence and love. And I want to end with a beautiful poem of Rumi. In this earth, in this soil, in this pure field, let's not plant any seed other than seeds of compassion and love. Thank you.
You're such an inspiration to me as an 18-year-old. And as such, I'm super thrilled to introduce someone who's younger than me as our next speaker. Lusapriya Kengujam, a 9-year-old climate activist and founder of the Child Movement.
The best gift parents can give to their children is not a beautiful house, expensive cars, lots of money. The best gift you can give to your children is a beautiful planet. If you can change your state, then you can change your country. If you can change your country, then you can change the whole world. Change means empowerment. Empowerment means independent. Independent means freedom. Freedom is when you can protect your land and environment. Freedom is when you can protect your children's future, culture, and health. Freedom is when no one can discriminate you on the basis of caste, creed, color, sex, or any other differences. Freedom is when you can read and write. Freedom is when you're out of hunger. Freedom is when we are all together in this fight. Fight for your freedom. Thank you. Jai Hind. Sanale Bamanipurna Jeffrey. Thank you once again.
Our only option now is to take the course of history into our own hands. The people running things have made it very clear that they do not care about my generation or those even younger than me, but believe me, we're very scared. Help us organize more youth-led climate pilgrimages like Nick's 800-mile walk in Florida, Sergio's walk in Australia, and Howie in China. These are brave youth sounding the alarm about the climate emergency. So please help my generation to build a worldwide rebellion of transformation. We're all in this together. I've said it before, and I'm saying it now again, there's no time to lose. I'm genuinely very scared for my future and our future, and my heart breaks for the youth and all of the living beings in the world. I'm scared for my friends, and I'm angry that because of greed and corruption and a system that doesn't care about us, our hopes and dreams are being smashed because of the extreme circumstances that are heading our way. This is a crime against everyone, against the people who are most susceptible, and to my generation and to those to come, the youth of the world. We are depending on you. We're only just beginning to live our lives, and there's only a small window of opportunity for us to move forward, but we do need money to do that. I'm 18 and I need your help. So donate as much as you can right now. Big or small, whatever you can manage would make a huge difference.
People often start discussions like this with the words, we face an uncertain future. But actually, that isn't true. We face an absolutely certain future featuring all the horrors we've heard about and which we see beginning to happen around us unless we take radical action now. Radical action can happen at every scale, from the purely personal to the local neighborhood to the national level and the global level. Everything is a contribution and nothing is irrelevant. It doesn't even matter if some of the actions seem contradictory. This is part of the evolutionary process. At the simplest, all that matters is to be pushing away from the state of short-termist, money-hungry stupidity that we've drifted into and towards something else. It doesn't even matter that we don't yet have a clear picture of what that something else will be. That will come into focus as we start building it. The path is made by walking, not by sitting at home and hoping someone else will. As Picasso said, to know what you're going to draw, you have to start drawing. It is we, you and me and all of us, who must start drawing the future.
So I think that really means we need to start talking about just how bad things are and what that means in terms of what's coming our way, whatever we do now. That was already in my mind 2 years ago when I spoke at the opening of the rebellion in Oxford Circus. We gather and rebel not with a vision of a fairy tale future where we fix the climate, but because it's right to do what we can, it's right to try and reduce harm, it's right to try and save what we can, and it's right to try and live the way we believe in. To try and come back to sanity and love. Because the truth is we're scared, but we're brave enough to say so. The truth is we're grieving, but we're proud enough to say so. The truth is we're traumatized, but we're open enough to say so. We are angry, but we are calm enough to gather and to call others to join us. After the speech, a reporter from Channel 4 News came up to me and asked to interview, and I declined. The reason at the time was that I didn't feel comfortable about my understanding of the future being communicated in just a few seconds through TV, so people would hear at home that they are now vulnerable, that in the future they could be experiencing, very likely to be experiencing, malnutrition and diseases and instability of all kinds. That's not a very nice message. It's not a very nice feeling to have, an outlook to have. It's tough, and it's certainly not a nice message to bring to other people. 2 years on, now, my view has changed. I actually think we do have to talk to people about how we are all now becoming increasingly vulnerable, inevitably. So the conversation now needs to shift. So you might ask why change now? For me, there's at least two key reasons. The first one is surveys show that more and more people now anticipate societal disruption and collapse in their own lifetimes. However, things are beginning to change. Just a few months ago, we saw 500 scholars come out and sign an international scholars' warning about the risk of societal collapse, and really demanding now that we have more open and mature conversations about the implications of that. However, our views were largely ignored by the mainstream media, and that's why we need Extinction Rebellion to keep doing what it's doing, and at a larger scale. The thing is about nonviolent civil disobedience is that it's a great conversation starter. It's like an electric shock to the heart of the democratic process that really can get it started again. It's almost like a defibrillation for the body politic. It doesn't provide the answers, but it really gets things going again. That's why we need Extinction Rebellion to be out on the streets. It means we need to say it as we see it, no matter how difficult the emotions involved. I still get affected badly whenever I really delve into some of the latest climate science or look at some of the impacts around the world. A recent instance of that was when I read about the observatory in Hawaii finding that global carbon dioxide atmospheric concentrations have gone to the highest ever, and that was a year after reduced human emissions because of the pandemic, which suggests, therefore, that the Earth is not doing what it used to do in terms of stabilizing carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, not to the degree it used to, and therefore we could really be seeing some of these really scary feedbacks underway. And I was quite shocked at how quite a lot of climatologists tried to sort of soften the news and not actually say how worrying this is, given the fact that its emissions have come down, but carbon concentrations have shot up. So I, as a way of allowing that feeling and expressing it, I actually wrote a poem. And so this is going to be the first time I've decided to do it to camera. At 4:21 ppm, feedback screams its piercing sound, rising rates after lockdown. We're falling down the long mountain of life. We'll turn away no more as the breaking of life returns to our threshold. What was pretended now breaks apart, both in us and around. We're breaking together with the living one. You don't escape this. I don't. No part will not break together, with each of us and every us within the living one. Is poetry what I've come to? Let's drop the ambiguity. We're fucked. I'm scared. Let's pray. But I'm no longer praying for time, because there's infinity inside, in you and me and anyone despised. For in the beginning, all was pre-forgiven. Gaia so loved her kids, she got us to break together, not apart, with her. At 4:21 ppm, there is no tougher love. But there is life after doom and life beyond fucked, because life is always astounding in this one moment and the next. It's just that being slapped awake doesn't really feel that great. But could it ever? If you find some of the news and analysis unbearable, then you're not alone. And I think what's really important is to allow difficult emotions, notice them, honor them as actually useful information, connect with other people openly, vulnerably about them, and try and support each other in community and see how we can stay present in this difficulty in meaningful ways, wise ways, caring ways, kind ways, creative ways. It's important we help each other to avoid either getting stuck because of our aversion to difficult emotions or because of our immersion in them. As I wrote in the XR handbook, I don't think it's helpful to say act now before it's too late, because it's too late for so much already. While it's never too late to do the right thing, it's never too late to be awake to the social conditioning that's held us back from connection and care for each other and for nature. The future is going to be more unstable in many ways for many people. Only thin convictions demand bright horizons to keep going. Deep convictions can last no matter how long we might be riding through a valley with disruption and death. Articulating a deep conviction for respecting all life is key to the future of the environmental movement. If people think that non-violence is just a tactic, then when situations worsen, some people might consider other tactics. Instead, non-violence can be upheld precisely because humanity is suffering, not despite it. The situation also means climate and environment activists can now really start working on climate adaptation. We need to see fair, transformative and deep adaptation efforts talked about, campaigned about and actually brought forward in policy, and very soon. And I really hope Extinction Rebellion can play a part in that process going forward. Thank you for having me, and I hope your efforts in America go well.
And hello, everyone. Hopefully this is working okay. Yeah, I've got the honor to introduce three people, young people who are going to speak next. I've been involved in mobilizing people and helping with mobilization around the world for 2 or 3 years now for Extinction Rebellion. And I'm sure you'll know that it can be a very dispiriting process. There's lots of evasion, repression, cowardice, all the things that we're battling against. And what's been very dispiriting as well is the lack of radicalization of young people who've been largely told to follow the traditional environmental routines of marches and emails and what have you. However, in the last few months, great things have started happening, and increasingly I'm finding young people around the world who want to step up into the classical nonviolence tradition and take it away. And I'm going to let these people introduce themselves, and here they are.
So hello everyone. My name is Oyi, and I'm a 18-year-old vegan and zero-waste climate striker from China, and I have been coordinating Fridays for Future China for the last 1.5 years, almost 2 years now. And 2 years ago, I sat myself down in front of the Guilin People's Government for 7 days and was interrogated by the police. And also after that, I traveled around China without money for 2 months to find support for the China climate activism. And I slept in everywhere I can find, and I ate baozi for 2 months. And today I just I actually very nervous about what I'm going to share, because I'm not really good at public speaking. But I would like just to share some of my experience of doing the activism. So right now I'm in Lausanne, Switzerland, and I'm spending half a year in Europe and to learn how the movement works here. And during the 2 years, I basically just try my best to do the direct actions in China, although sometimes maybe be criticized as not very strategically by some organizations or people. But I think the most important thing for us is that the environmental defenders like me are being sent to the prison, because recently I received 60 days imprisonment and 1,200 francs by defending a hill with other activists. The justice system are not going to save us. So we need to use direct action to pass all this useless process that's cheating people to getting the so-called justice. We have no choice but to use physical disruption, really gain our power from the nature, and to think about it is the love and inspiration from nature that get us all to here. And I'm really grateful that this event happening, and thank you all for caring about the climate and nature.
I am going to be marching from Miami to the capital of Florida in Tallahassee.
My name is Nicholas Vasquez. I'm 23 years old, and I am embarking on this insane 800-mile climate march to Tallahassee from Miami, the capital of Florida, Tallahassee from Miami. What being an idiot means at this time is I'm willing to jump into the lake of fire and run towards the barrel of the gun because I don't give a fuck anymore. And to be honest, I don't really enjoy the attention, and I'd rather keep to myself. And the reality is that we face is that they are going to kill us all, and no one gives a fuck. They're going to kill us all, and no one gives a fuck. They are going to kill us all, and nobody gives a fuck. And that's what I have been having to deal with and to cope with, that no one is going to come and save us, and that it is absolutely up to us. And I'm embarking on this insane journey to destroy my ego and put a mirror up to society and say to society that this is who we are. We have to face the facts that this is who we've been. We're currently a society engaged in the most abhorrent evil of all time, willing to sacrifice all life on earth for a little bit more comfort, to protect our egos, to avoid discomfort and not feel embarrassed. And I'm guided by a quote from Albert Einstein, a pretty smart guy. And the quote goes that the world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything. And if we don't accept who we are, and if I don't accept who I am, then I won't be able to change for the better. And I can tell you from my experience that there is no greater feeling than speaking your truth and stepping into your power. And throughout this journey, I've been doing back-to-back actions. I felt embarrassed. I felt scared, sick to my stomach. But once I've stepped into my power and committed to it, then that fear, then it goes. And there is no greater feeling. It's exhilarating. And the more you do it, the more you step into your power, the fear dissipates and the power shines. I'm using the word fuck as a way to express my anger, my fury, and exclaim my contempt for the way things are. I find it to be the most useful word at this time, but there are no words to express the horrors that are to come and how I truly feel. There are only actions. And I will not accept the way it is, and I will no longer tolerate this immense injustice, because we are all fucked. And they fucked us. They fucked us into oblivion, into a fucking annihilation, and there is no fucking time left. So I encourage you all to get off your fucking ass and take some fucking action and have some real fucking fun for once in your life, for God's sakes. We have to say fuck logic, fuck the numbers, fuck words, fuck the science, fuck the politeness, fuck politics, and fuck ourselves, because we're all going to hell anyways. So people have been here before in times of crisis, in the face of annihilation. People have done the impossible. So I encourage us all to put our differences aside. I'm here to organize the biggest rebellion in Florida's history and engage in nonviolent civil resistance against a criminal regime that is sending our children and our youth and our people to death and to slaughter. And so I say to you, I will see you on the fucking streets. Thank you. Yeah.
That was incredible. So my name's Sergio. I'm 21 from Australia. I've been arrested 15 times now. I've been sent to prison. As soon as I left home, left my conservative home at 17, I got involved into whatever was the most radical activism I could. And now I've dropped out of uni. I don't have a job, and I've been full-time working to fight against this annihilation project for the last sort of 3 years now. Between now and the year 2100, there is 2.5 billion seconds. Under some of the best case climate collapse scenarios, because we have a collapsing climate, we are looking at one person every second from now on dying from our failure. And that's my failure too. I've been in this movement for 4 years now, and I've fucking failed. And I'm so sorry. And, I lay awake at night just like in so much horror of what my failure means for me and for the people of my generation. I'm really glad that you brought up, Nick. We've really fucked it. If people aren't like severely suffering from their failure, I think you need to do some arithmetic, do some sort of deep thinking about what social collapse looks like, what war looks like, what it's like to be brutally raped and slaughtered in the streets. We have to go into action. And recently I did a 300-kilometer pilgrimage from largest city in Australia to the capital over 2 weeks. Was asking young people to come and join me. The plan of the Treason March that I'm trying to start around the world is basically to shut down the main highways of our governments until they concede to a citizens' assembly. I think that throughout that 2-week period, I felt that the happiest that I have for a very long time, it was because of my pain in my feet. Every day, all I'm doing is walking and feeling pain and my blisters and more blisters. And that distracts me from, the fact that, billions of people are going to starve to death because of my failure so far. Yeah, those are some things that I want to share. And I guess the last thing is that basically myself and some of the young people you have heard from today and many more that have been prison and engaged in civil disobedience are looking to start a new group of young people that are going to engage in mass participation in civil disobedience to the point of imprisonment. Because the problem with the youth climate activism space is that the school strike, the climate sort of scene, which has been co-opted by the NGOs, youth climate activism. So that means that we're signing our death warrant if we aren't going against that norm that the NGOs have been installing into this movement for the past 30 years. We all need to be engaging in non-violent civil disobedience to the point of imprisonment time and time again with our friends, with our family, until our government installs a binding citizens assembly. Excuse the stutter, my goodness. Anyway, that's my 5 minutes up. Thank you so much.
Great stuff. There's not really much I want to say other than, for me, as a co-founder of Extinction Rebellion, what you've just heard from these 3 young people is the essence of the spirit of what Extinction Rebellion was set up to do. Extinction Rebellion was not set up to create another comfortable middle-class global north moaning site, right? It was to rebel. It's in the name. Extinction Rebellion. It wasn't a brand. When the 15 people in the room founded Extinction Rebellion, it was to found a rebellion. Yeah. A rebellion is to resist evil to the point of imprisonment, to the point of losing your liberty. That's what rebellion classically means. Civil resistance classically means to engage in resistance against radical evil. That's what we're facing today. I don't want to reiterate all the different points people have said, other than to say, I got an email this week from one of the top 10 climate scientists in the world confirming that 1.5 degrees is locked in. 3 leading world scientists confirmed several weeks ago that there wasn't a single scientist at Paris in 2015 who believed that Paris was feasible. What we've had for the last 6 years is a continuous lying about reality. And the essence of Extinction Rebellion is to speak the truth, right? And to act as if it's real. And speaking the truth is not having some fine speech and long words and good arguments, right? It's about stuttering, it's about being incoherent, but it's about being real. And that's what Extinction Rebellion was set up to do, was to blast through all the repression and all the euphemism to the reality, which is we're betraying the next generation to their deaths. That's what we're facing. And just so many activities like this, you know, conferences, gatherings over the last 30 years. And what I want to say is this is not one of them, right? This is not another 3-hour session where we all pat ourselves on the back afterwards and say, that's great. No, what this is about is people signing up to go to prison, signing up to support the people that go to prison, and signing up to give $1,000 a month, right? Or $100 a month. It's not $3 a month. It's about the future and whether we've got one. It's entirely different to any other social movement or crisis in world history, right? I've been involved in social movements for 35 years since I was 15. Nothing compares with the absolute crisis we face at this present moment. The highest risk option is not civil resistance. The highest risk option is to do nothing. The highest risk option isn't to give that $1,000 a month. It's to not give it. Okay, let's get our priorities right. But let's give Larry Kramer the last say, right? If you don't get in the streets, you're gonna fucking die. That's Extinction Rebellion, folks. Thanks.
Thank you, Roger. You took words out of my mouth. So all of us in Extinction Rebellion America and XR World especially thank each one of you who came and joined us today. And we're looking forward to seeing you on the streets.